I played baseball in high school, and it was my favorite sport. This is something that happened during my junior year, and in the wintertime, our team baseball practices started in March, but for a few weeks before that, we could have captain's practices. They were located in the high school gym, and only on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But because of gym times, we had to practice before school. They would be from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m., and not that many kids would show up to most of them because they were optional. I took my practice very serious though, and I was always there. Usually there was about 8 to 10 of us practicing in the morning. We would play catch, do some hitting drills and some fewing stuff as well. So, anyways, I had my own car back then, and I would drive myself to school one Thursday morning. I arrived at school at about 4:45 a.m. for captain's practice. It was very early, and the only people at the school besides a few teammates were janitors. The front door to the school wasn't even unlocked, yet so had to enter through the side door. I remember that I walked in the school that morning, and I was heading to the gym walking down the hallway. We couldn't use the locker rooms that time of year because basketball was still in season, so we had to just change in the gym, or else we could go down to the public locker room. I walked past the hallway where the locker rooms were between some classrooms in the gyms. Most of the lights in the school were off. But when I went past that hallway to my left, I heard a loud crashing sound. It was coming from a ways down the hallway, and I didn't know what it was. It stopped though and looked over the hallway. It was very dark, but I saw some guy walk out from one room and cross the hallway and then go into another room. He was really far away, but I could tell that the guy was not a janitor. I really didn't know what was going on, but it didn't seem like any of my business. Maybe it was a teacher who arrived really early, or who knows what. I kept walking and I soon made it to the gyms. I went inside, and within a few minutes, a couple of my teammates were there. Wes started warming up and then practicing. I would say about 20 minutes into practice, and I was doing some fielding stuff. I noticed the doors at the end of the gym where one was open. This man walked through the door. She was not an employee of the school and was not a student. Either he just looked like some random guy. He had kind of a sloppy looking beard, dark hair, and was also wearing a beanie hat. I was just really confused seeing him walk in the gym. I looked over, and the teammate that I was with did this, while the other guys were busy doing drills. The man looked around and then walked over near the batting cages. We had a bunch of our bats on the ground. There the man picked up a baseball bat and then started walking around. This immediately raised red flags in my head, and I'm sure it did in my teammates as well. We were just really confused though. I finally asked, "Who's that?" Right around that same moment is when I remembered the noise that I had heard in the hallway, and I realized that this was probably the same guy. Meanwhile, the way the man was moving around with the bat seemed really sketchy. Another teammate who was closer to the guy finally noticed him and confronted him, asking who he was. The man responded by raising the bat as if he was going to take his wing at my teammate. My teammate backed up, and then the man started to charge at him. The kid ran away from him, and the others started to notice and all move away as well. Some guys started to yell at the man to drop the bat, and other teammates started calling him crazy and stuff. There wasn't much that we could do when the man was threatening us with a baseball bat. One of my teammates threw a baseball at him pretty hard though and hit him. The guy kind of stopped for a second, and it clearly hurt them. By now everyone started moving away from the guy and starting to leave the gym. After the man recovered from getting hit with the baseball, he started running at us again. Well, left the gym, not wanting and then to get whacked by this guy, and we're down the hallway to find a place we could take cover. We went into the guest locker room, which wasn't that far away. Once we were there, we called the police and reported what was going on. Some of the guys held the door shut in case the man tried to enter, but thankfully he did not. We did hear him walking down the hallway though. Within probably 10 minutes, the cops were there. They were able to detain the man, but threatened them with a bat for a while as well. I'm guessing that the man was on drugs or something, but I don't know for sure. Things got cleared up before 7 a.m., so the school day was able to go on just as normal. I'm not really sure where the guy came from or when he entered the school. I'm just really glad that he didn't hurt anyone. This event happened just yesterday. I went to see the New York Rangers hockey team play at Madison Square Garden, and it traveled solo. I went alone because I don't have that many friends and nobody I knew was a fan of the Rangers. It's whatever though. Overall, I had a great time at the game. The Rangers won, and I was talking to some other fans that were sitting right next to me. A fight even broke out at the game, which I found entertaining. When the game finished, I left the arena along with a large crowd, and we were all singing along together to Seven Nation Army, then separated from the crowd and went my own way. I was on my way to a parking lot that was about 6 or 7 blocks away from where MSG was. I had to park far away because there were so many cars on 34th Street that there would be a lot of traffic, and all the parking lots nearby were full. I would say it took like 10 minutes to reach where I parked my car. It was quiet all around. I mean, I didn't hear a single person as I was walking to my car. A felt tattoo well being wrapped around my head. Suddenly, the next thing I knew, I was thrown to the ground and felt 4 pairs of feet kicking. They were kicking me lover, and this went on for about 15 seconds. When they finished, I was too weak to move or say anything. It then felt my phone, wallet, and car keys being taken out of my pockets. I wasn't overthinking at that moment. I was being robbed after this was done. I heard a bunch of men speaking in Spanish to each other, and then I heard them all run off. I recognized their accents to be Venezuelan accents. I heard them run until I could no longer hear footsteps. That's when I felt like it was safe to get up from the ground. It was really hard to get up. I kept grunting and groaning because I was in massive pain. It took me about a full minute to stand up, and when I stood up, I couldn't do it straight. It then took a step, and my back was hunched over overall. I was able to walk though, but very slowly. Went about 50 feet. Until I saw a payphone. When I was at the payphone, I dialed 911, and it told the police that I had just been robbed and everything I had in my pockets, including my phone and wallet and keys, were gone. After it told them every detail, they said that police officers would be right over. They came in like 2 minutes, which was surprisingly fast. 2 officers came out from the police car and asked me if I was okay. It told them that I was okay mentally, but physically I was not okay. I was put into the car and they drove me to the hospital. It told them about what happened while I was in the car. I arrived at the hospital in under 5 minutes, and I didn't need much treatment. All I got was some ice packs and some painkiller shots. I made a call to where my car was located. I phoned to none of the hospital telephones because I did not have my phone. It told the parking assistant over the phone that I needed my car tow because my car keys were stolen. I stayed at the hospital overnight and went back home to New Jersey on the Port Authority bus terminal the next morning. I paid the impound lot to where my car was through my computer, which is the one I'm typing on as I speak. I don't have a phone on me right now, but I plan on getting a new one at the end of this week. I saw that there were new charges on my credit cards, which disturbed me to my core. So I called the credit card company and had them cancel my cards. I'm still very angry that my necessities were stolen from me, but what's most important at the end of the day is that I made it out alive, and I can move on from this eventually as I look to have a bright future ahead of meth. This happened back when I was a kid. I was 9 years old, and I remember that one night I went to my older sister's soccer game. I went with my parents and my younger sister. The soccer games, I found mostly pretty boring. It was a fun atmosphere, but sometimes I would get up and walk around. My sister would play at this park that of course had the soccer fields, but there was some other stuff too. There were walking paths, and then on the other side some baseball and softball fields. There was also some trees and picnic areas and stuff. Soon this night that my sister had a game, the lights were on at the field, and it was dark out sometime into the game. Though I got up to walk around because I was bored of the soccer game. I went past the soccer fields, and with it being nighttime, there wasn't really anything else going on in the park. Normally there would be people all around. I walked on the trail and soon made it away from the soccer fields and near the softball and baseball fields. I remember that I went to one of the softball fields. Sometimes I would find a ball laying around and I would play on the field with it. However, as I was entering the field, I went through the dugout. I didn't notice at first, but there was a kid sitting at the end of the dugout bench right when I was getting onto the field. I noticed him. He was all by himself, and he was now looking at me. He was a much older kid than me, though he looked to be like 15 or 16. Maybe even it felt weird, now that I had randomly walked onto the field, and it turned around and just left. Nobody said anything, but not long after it started to walk away. I heard the kid get up and start walking towards me. He left the dugout and was now walking on the trail behind me. It was strange, sort of, but I didn't think it was a big deal. However, a little while of me walking on the trail, I thought that maybe he was following me. I decided to cut through the grass and walk back towards the soccer fields in this area. It was much darker because none of the lights were on when I cut through the grass. The guy did as well. Now I felt like he was following me for sure, but I didn't know what to do about it, other than just continue back. I couldn't believe it, but the entire time I was walking, the guy was walking behind Mizoon. I started to go faster. Eventually, I made it to where I could see the lights in the soccer field again, and I made it back to my parents. By the time I reached the field, the guy kind of stopped following me. I remember looking around though, and after I got back with my parents, I saw the guy standing sort of far away just looking at me. It was really weird. Within a few minutes of that though, he was gone. I watched the game for what felt like a really long time. After halftime, I got bored again and decided to walk around. I had sort of forgot about the kid that had been following me earlier, but I was quickly reminded as soon as I got away from the soccer fields where it was not very well lit. I saw the kid just standing off in the grass. As soon as I remembered him, it turned around and started to go back, and Stanley went onto the path and started to seemingly follow me again. I continued back towards my parents and was walking about as fast as I could without jogging. When I got back to my parents this time, I did not leave for the rest of the game. A few times during the game, though, I looked back in the direction and saw the kid again. He was a ways off the path, just staring at me. It was really weird and creepy when we were leaving. He was still there after that night, though I never saw him again. I still think about it. Sometimes, why was he being so weird? He was probably just trying to scare me, but it seemed very odd last summer. I played tennis quite a bit, mostly with my friend Veronica. We both played in high school, and there's a park with nice tennis courts pretty close by where we live. We would meet up on random summer nights when the weather was good and play for a few hours soon time. I remembered that we both did not have work the next day at the drained earlier in the afternoon, but we both wanted to get some exercise in and felt like playing tennis. We went to the park and it was now dry and nice, but it was about 9 p.m. Things were a lot quieter than usual, and nobody else was at the tennis courts. The lights were on those, so it seemed like we were in for a good time. The tennis courts are near the front of the park, next to the Missa basketball area and some volleyball courts. On the other are some soccer fields. And then directly behind the tennis courts is this large woods. There are some trails that got through the woods, but overall it's very dense. And the woods is like right on the other side of the tall fences from the tennis court fan. Yuka and I played a few games of tennis. After we had been there for maybe an hour, I remember that I heard sounds coming from behind me. I was laying on the end right next to the woods. There was maybe 6 feet of grass before the thick woods started. I looked over at the noise, thinking maybe it was a deer or something, but when I did, I couldn't see much. There was a sort of see-through green covering most of tall fence like they have on many tennis courts, and in the woods there were no lights. Still, I could see a little bit but didn't notice anything. We continued to play. Over time, though, I heard more movement in the woods behind me. I looked once again, and this time I saw something. There was a man standing on the edge of the woods looking in my direction. As soon as I saw him, he went backwards and disappeared into the woods. Again, it seemed suspicious. And this late at night, it kind of gave me the creeps. Still, I felt safe in the tennis courts, and I was with Veronica, so kept playing. After maybe 10 more minutes, I heard some of the noises in the woods again on and off, but I just ignored them. Then I stopped hearing them. For the most part, we played for maybe another 15 minutes or so after that. And then we were done. After that, we left the tennis courts and then walked into the parking lot, which was not that far away. By now, our 2 cars were the only ones left in the entire parking lot. When we walked towards them, we noticed a man standing pretty close by. It was the same guy who I had seen in the woods. It stopped, and Veronica died us while we were still a long ways away. And I told her about seeing the guy in the woods. He was just kind of slowly walking between our cars. It was almost like he was waiting for us. Veronica and I decided not to go to our cars. Instead, we walked to the other side of the tennis courts. We were talking to each other, trying to figure out what to do. That guy seemed super sketchy. Both of us walked along the path for a few minutes. Farther away from the parking lot, after maybe 5 minutes, we decided to go back and see if the guy was still there. When we arrived to the tennis courts, we looked around the corner and saw that the man was in fact still there. I really wanted to leave, and I ended up making a bad decision. I told Veronica that we should stop being scared and just go for it. I started walking into the parking lot. Theman was standing there still between our 2 cars and looking right at me. I started to approach the man. I said, "Hey, can we help you with something?" The man said, "Yeah, I need you to give Myriad." Then I said something probably even stupider. I said, "Well, these aren't our cars." Then I made sure I stayed a good distance from the man, and Veronica and I kept walking through the edge of the parking lot. The man kept watching us but didn't say anything. I'm pretty sure that the guy knew those 2 cars were obviously ours. I just choked and I said the first thing that had come to my mind. We walked to the end of the parking lot and then onto the sidewalk that went along the road. When we made it to the sidewalk, I glanced back and noticed that the man was starting to walk in our direction. He was still a long ways away, but I thought that he might be following us, so then I just started running. Veronica did the same. We took off and sprinted along the sidewalk when there was an intersection a short ways ahead. We both went to the left, then we're down that way for a while. Sometime later, we stopped and looked around. We didn't see the man anywhere at that point. We felt like we lost him, so decided to head back very carefully. We walked back towards our cars. I thought at any moment we might see the guy again, but we didn't. We were able to make it back to the cars. and then go home. We haven't played tennis that late at night since. I still wonder what would have happened if we had gone to our cars. This is a crazy experience that I had when I went to an NFL game a couple of years ago. I live out east, and there's several NFL stadiums that are really not that far apart from one another. I was actually going to a road game one time when my favorite team was playing there, where this stadium was not really that far away. So I was able to make the drive. Finding parking was kind of tough though, because it was my first time at that stadium. However, I ended up finding a cheap parking ramp, except it was a 20-minute walk from the field, but I'm in good shape and I don't mind walking, so it's fine. It was my first time there, and being a fan of the road team, I expected to get some booze. This was a night game, so it was a little different than the typical Sunday game at 1. It seemed like the crowd was a little crazier. Revent thought they can always get crazy, or maybe that's just how things are at this particular stadium. So anyways, the game was a fun time. A few fans gave me a hard time, but nothing that I couldn't handle. There was also a decent amount of fans for my team, and they were cool. Unfortunately, my team lost, but I was still glad to have seen the game in person. When an NFL game ends, the walkways in the stadium become extremely crowded, so it's nearly impossible to make it out in a decent times. So I remember that as I was walking up the stairs of the aisle to the concourse, there was a line. There I was slowly making my way up, and other fans were leaving the seating area to the stairs. This big guy who was a fan of the other team just ran into him. He was coming from the seats, and I was walking up the stairs. She literally just barged his way onto the stairs instead of waiting, and nearly knocked me over. He kind of shoved him back and said, "Watch it, Paul," had then cursed at me and then rubbed it in how my team had lost and I suck and all that, but it wasn't in a joking way. This guy just seemed rude. It tried to squeeze my way ahead of him out of anger, and also because I was now squished between like 5 people. Thiemann literally grabbed me and pushed me back, with then got into it a little bit verbally. We were basically cursing each other out and going back and forth. Within maybe 20 seconds, another fang kind of stepped between us and told us to forget it. I did want to forget it. I used this opportunity to turn and walk in front of him and squeeze past a few other people. The guy tried going after me, but who was a lot bigger and wouldn't be able to get through the people. Like I could have made it into the concourse, which was now loaded with people. I did my best to make my way to the exits. Everyone is really packed in like sardines, so you can only really take very small steps. I hoped that I would not see the angry fan again, since I had gotten into it with him. I figured that with me getting in front of him, he was angry, but I also figured that he was probably drunk and I would never see him again, especially with all these people, so I kept walking, and it probably took 10 minutes to make it out of the stadium. Once I was out, thought things cleared up a bit, but it was still very crowded. People were dispersing into all different directions, and traffic cops were blocking all the roads in the immediate area. In these of people, though, I looked back to the stadium, and as all the same angry fan, I couldn't believe it. We made eye contact for like a second, and then I saw Wim walking towards me. I literally turned and ran the other way. It then walked quickly, weaving in and out of people and trying to blend with the crowd. When I made it a good ways away, I saw where I had to cross, and I did. I crossed the street, and then there was a large crowd of people that I was walking with. I also figured that I had lost the man. By then I just had to walk on the sidewalk straight for like 50 minutes to my parking ramp now. And the farther I walked, the crowd that I was with got smaller and smaller. It went from tons of people on the sidewalk to many, to a decent amount, to just a few. When I had made it to within maybe 2 or 3 minutes of my parking ramp, it was literally just me on the sidewalk. It felt nice to be out of the crowd, until I heard something behind me. "Hey buddy." You turned behind me and saw the same guy. How on earth had he kept up with me? I turned around and faced him. He was walking extremely fast towards me. I said, "What's your problem, Paul?" Then I heard a woman's voice from even farther back. A lady was walking behind the guy, trying to catch up with him. She said, "Tony, what are you doing? Get back here." It was his wife, Tony, who sounded obviously drunk, said that I had been talking smack. Has caught up with him and said that it was time to go. She apologized to me and said that Tony had a little too much to drink. Tony then walked closer to me. I thought that was going to punch me in the face for a second, but then he said, "I was really mad at you," but he forgot why. Then he held out his hand for a handshake. I shook his hand and he pulled me in and gave me a big hug. Tony's wife said that she called an Uber and it was going to be coming like 5 blocks the other direction. It told Tony congrats on the win and everything was good between us. He then said that he loved me and also that my team sucks. Then we went our separate ways. It was a surprisingly good ending to what I thought was going to be aerial horror story in the end. Tony just had a little too much to drink. He probably doesn't remember what happened, but if he does, I hope I run into him at the next game as well.